NLA is giving you more chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the Multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more or free plays. With Multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
Yeah. Welcome to Ride Along Live for today. It is Monday. Beautiful Monday. As you come and go ahead and share up the thing, share it up. We have, listen, very exciting, very interesting conversation today, guys, that involve everyone. Everyone participation is needed. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, as promoted, we have the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and PT Martinique, Honorable Deacon Mitchell, is here with us. Yeah. And although I'm hosting the conversation today, guys, I'm merely the facilitator, right? You guys are actually given the opportunity to also send in your question or call in your question to the Honorable Prime Minister. So I'm merely the facilitator here today. Okay, all right. So let me share. Hey, Shirley-Ann, how you doing? Big up yourself. Oh, guys, let me also tell you, and this, we did not discuss that with the Prime Minister as yet, right? It's a complete surprise. So we are also going to be during the program, you're going to see this pop up on your screen. This is an approval rating system, right? This is a real-time approval rating system. So if you are totally approve or you approve of the work that the Prime Minister is doing, you're going to press the heart and keep pressing that heart and the approval rating is going to go up. And of course, if not so much, then you press the thumbs up. So this is the approval, the Ride Along configured approval rating system. Again, if you approve by the work that the administration is doing, you're going to press that heart. Yeah, press that heart and invite folks to press the heart. And if not, you're going to press the thumbs up. So that's how the approval rating system is going to work today. All right? Okay. Thank you. Also, before we start with the Prime Minister, let me also say that I want to thank you, Ride Along fans, supporters, well-wishers, everybody. Today, we got some great news that the platform has just recorded its 10 million engagement for the month. For one single month, we were able to engage over 10 million viewers worldwide. And this is amazing news. So thank you. If you watch, you share, you're a part of this platform in any way, we say thank you. We owe this all to you. Gratitude is a must, and we thank you so much. Again, guys, remember the approval rating system. So far, it's at 86%. Let's see how it goes. Let's bring in the man of the hour. Let's waste no time. And welcome the Honorable Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and PT Martinique, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell. How are you doing, sir?
Well, thank you for having me, and a pleasant evening, afternoon, night, morning, wherever you're 10 million plus.
Yeah. Deacon, 10 million, 10 million,
Congratulations to you, and congratulations to the viewers for obviously helping you achieve this milestone. It's obviously an incredible achievement, so congratulations. I'm doing fine. Nice.
Yeah, as you say, welcome to the 10 million engagement platform, Honorable Prime Minister. Oh man, listen, as I said, I'm merely going to be the facilitator on this platform here today because there are so many viewers that have so many questions for you. We put this out and everyone had questions. We have thousands of questions. Well, not thousands. We have hundreds of questions. I doubt we will not be able to get to all of it, but hopefully we get to some of the most important ones. All right.
Sure.
All right. So before we start, Honorable Prime Minister, how are you doing? How was your day? How is everything going so far?
I'm doing good. It's Monday, so it's cabinet meetings and lots of meetings with permanent secretaries following cabinet meetings. So this is my last engagement for the day. So I'm doing good.
Good. Okay, well, we feel we pool our viewership and they're interested in a number of different topics. So today we're going to talk about economic development, of course, education, healthcare, environment, infrastructure, tourism, foreign relation, security, and social welfare. Those are some of the questions that we will be, or sections that we'll be talking about today. Before we go into that, Mr. Prime Minister, it's almost 1 year since you presided over Grenada, became the Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, or Petite Martinique, Carriacou, and Grenada. How has it been so far in this almost 1 year?
It's been good. I think it's been an exciting time. I certainly feel very encouraged that I made up my mind to get involved in public service. I think all of my ministers feel the same way. It's been a lot of work, obviously. We are satisfied that I think we've done a lot of the things we said we were going to do. But more importantly, there's a lot more work to do. And we want to obviously continue to encourage Grenadians to support us, to support each other, and to work together to help build this lovely island called Grenada.
Yeah. What have been some of the challenges thus far?
I think the main, I mean, for me personally, I think obviously I'm transitioning from the private sector where decision making, I think, is just straight out simpler. And obviously you're in the public sector, which has, I think, a lot more factors to feature in, from budgetary and fiscal restraints to having to ensure that you have multi-party consultations before decision making is enacted. And oftentimes the other challenge that I think we found is the state of the public service itself. I think when we came in, there was a lot of disillusionment, a lot of disenchantment. As you're aware, you have established workers, you have a lot of acting persons who are in acting positions, you have a lot of contracted employees, many of whom worked for the same salaries for a long period of time. You have unestablished workers, so you have a mixed bag. And so you have to be able to work through that and at the same time motivate people to want to come to work and want to serve the country. So I think that is part of the challenge that we're working through. We've started addressing it, obviously, with things like the pensions payment, with the bi-monthly payment, with the move to begin the process of regularizing workers, with making sure that we were able to quickly begin and conclude collective bargaining agreements with the teachers, the police, the prisons, etc. So that's part of addressing the human resource part of it. But it hasn't always been, it's not just always challenges. I think the truth is, we have found that the vast majority of the public servants, I think, want to work. They want to be motivated. I think they want to be treated fairly. And I think they want to, in fact, help build the country. So part of what we have to do is, in fact, motivate them, give them the opportunity to contribute, listen to their advice, their suggestions, and ensure that we are all on the same team and it's not them against us. So as much as there's been a lot of challenges, I think the reality also is that we found that people actually do want to help with the transformation agenda, and they're looking forward to being part and parcel of that process.
Yeah. We also polled the audience, and one of the things that is top of the agenda that people would like to understand and just try to understand what's happening is the increase in violent crime. Right. We've seen over the past months or so an increase in reported robberies with firearm and other type of crime with firearm. What is your administration doing in terms of eradicating or at least trying to fix that problem?
Right. Well, I want to start first by saying I think it's often tempting whenever there's a violent crime for us to say that there is an increase in violent crime without actually looking at the statistics. And I think we have to bear that in mind without making blanket statements that there are, in fact, increases in violent crime or increase in crimes with firearm. So that's the first point. But second, yes, we've had a few isolated incidents involving the use of firearms, one in Carriacou, one in St. John in particular, which led to homicides. And I want to talk here first and foremost, I think about our approach to the issue of firearms. As I've said publicly, we will have a zero tolerance to firearms, certainly illegal firearms. And in order to address that, we recognize that the firearms are not made in Grenada, they enter Grenada. So we recognize that, one, we have to beef up our own external security at our ports of entry, whether it's the seaports, the airport, or frankly, or shoreline, where illegal firearms can come in. And so beefing up our Coast Guard capabilities is one such approach. Ensuring that we are able to procure and install scanners that can scan everything that comes through our seaport in particular is critical, because people are importing guns through barrels, containers, etc. And we have to make sure that we can detect and confiscate such illegal firearms. Secondly, we are working with our external partners through the OECS, through CARICOM, and crucially through the United States, because most of the guns that finds their way in the Caribbean, in CARICOM and in Grenada, are in fact manufactured in the US. And so it's critical to ensure that the US itself beefs up its own actions in terms of preventing illicit firearms from leaving their shores, which are destined for the Caribbean. And obviously the drug trade and the firearm trade go hand in hand, because obviously the drug trade is illegal, and the way in which people enforce the illegal drug trade or contracts is through force or violence through the use of firearms. So that's another aspect where we're working on with our partners. At the internal community level, though, we think it's crucial for us to identify the group or groups within our society that are most prone to see firearms as something attractive or sexy. And that is obviously young men. And so it's crucial that we socialize our young men properly. It's crucial that we engage with them. And it's crucial that we can persuade them at a very early age that a life of crime, and particularly violent crime and crime involving firearms, actually does not pay. So it's important that at our school level, at our community level, that we engage a lot with them, and that we do not criminalize them simply because they make a mistake early on in their lives, and that we give them the opportunities to grow, to find employment, and to not see crime as a means that's violent. The other thing we have to work on is how people resolve disputes. Oftentimes, violence is still seen as a way to resolve disputes rather than finding more amicable and more peaceful ways of resolving disputes. So whether it's giving people conflict resolution skills at schools, whether it's establishing mediation centers in our communities so that people can actually go to places to talk out their disputes. Because you'd find that oftentimes when a firearm is used, the perpetrator and the victim know each other. Or when violent crimes happen, quite often the victim and the perpetrator knows each other. And so we have to ensure that we can find ways to ensure that persons can resolve conflict without resorting to violence. And oftentimes it is something that might have been brewing rather than a random instantaneous act of violence. And so if we find ways so that people can talk through the differences, without resorting to violence, then I think certainly that would help as well. But at the end of the day, if we don't have the firearms in our communities, then there's less likelihood that crime involving the use of firearms will occur. And that's one of the key reasons why, in fact, we have a very low tolerance for firearms. Not only that, and I'm, in a sense, giving a very graphic Grenadian example. With a firearm, you can kill 6-7 persons quite easily. It's very difficult to do so with a cutlass, right? Or even a stone or a bottle. So there's no question that with a firearm, the damage and the potential loss could become exacerbated quite easily. And hence the reason why we certainly want to minimize the presence of firearms in our community. But overall, when it comes to violence itself, I think the key thing is to ensure that our strategies do not just focus on after the fact, but before the fact. And that's why I stress the importance of ensuring that our children are socialized properly, that we give them the opportunities to resolve the disputes and the conflicts by being able to talk through those issues, by finding counselors, by finding neutral persons who can help bring even young men who may have differences together so that they can talk through those. The use of sports, for example. Mm-hmm. And we certainly need to have a lot more sporting groups in our communities, in our villages, so that, again, young men who may be idle or otherwise not have things to do can find themselves and find expressions through sport. So that's one of the areas that we are very keen to promote, starting from a primary school level, both within the school system, but also at the community and village levels. So the Minister of Sport has been working on the national sports policy. The aim is to refurbish all of the sporting. We want to create national sporting offices in each of the parishes that will then permit those offices to be able to coordinate sporting activities, particularly amongst the community and school level within the various parishes, so we can target our young men in particular when it comes to ensuring that as teenagers and as young men, they actually have friends, peers who are positive role models that they can follow and emulate.
Right. Are you saying, as Minister of National Security, are you saying that the numbers does not reflect an increase in those crimes?
Well, I'm saying based on the stats we have, not necessarily. And I'm saying that's why you'd appreciate it, obviously, when we're doing stats, we either compare them year on year or month on month, as the case may be. I mean, I don't have the stats readily at my fingertips, but I think just as recently as last week, when we held a press briefing with the police, the outgoing commissioner of police would have in fact identified areas in which crime is significantly down. And so I can certainly, get the detailed statistics and make that available so that we can compare it. So that's why I'm saying I make the point that you may hear of a shooting in Carriacou or a shooting in St. John, and that has led to a homicide. But the question is, when you're comparing, you have to look at how many murders took place last year, or let's say in the last 5 years, how many murders have occurred this year, and then you do a comparison, and then you're in a position to say definitively that there's a rise or not in homicides, for example, or in rapes, or in other type of physical assault or armed robbery, etc. So it is not just because there's a report in the media of incidents or particular incidents that we can jump to the conclusion that there is.
But is it safe to say an increase in the presence of firearms, say whether it is being used, or say not used in a crime but being confiscated by law enforcement? Are we seeing an increase in those crimes? And
well,
the presence of the firearm.
Yeah. So as I said, I don't have the statistics with me at my fingertips. I can certainly get back and do it, and that's why with data you want to be careful. I certainly can tell you what the police has been doing. They've been ratcheting up their efforts to ensure that they confiscate, detect, find, and confiscate firearms. So if that has been successful and has led to more confiscations, then obviously that's a good thing. But I can't tell you statistically off my head that there's more firearms in the country than there was, say, a year ago or 2 years ago.
Right. What about the laws on the books, right, as it relates to holding or having a firearm in your presence? What's the laws that if someone caught with a firearm could face present?
Well, I mean, there's a Firearms Act, right, which permits the licensing of firearms. So someone can in fact apply to the Commissioner of Police, and you can, if approved, you can get a permit to have a licensed firearm. And at the same breath, the law also prohibits persons from holding unlicensed firearms, which is what we would call illegal firearms. And if you're caught with an illegal firearm, you run the risk of being imprisoned or fined. I think traditionally you probably find that when that happens, people have been fined. And once they pay the fine, then they don't face a jail time. We are considering reviewing the legislation to see whether or not stiffer penalties should be imposed. I would just make this one caveat that as legislators, we can pass law, we can say what the minimum or maximum sentences are, but the actual act of sentencing is still left to the judges and the magistrates. I mean, if we do amend the law and impose stiffer penalties, obviously it would be a policy signal that we wish to send that we would have zero tolerance for illegal firearms. Obviously, at the end of the day, it would require the judiciary to interpret that and to give the appropriate sentence for convictions of illegal firearms. But I certainly think as a society, we should have the conversation, and I hope most of the society will agree with me, that in a small place of 110,000 people, if you want to preserve our safety, that firearms really has no place. It's not part of us. It's not part of who we are. It's not part of our culture, and it's not something we should encourage. And honestly, I don't know of countries that have a high proliferation of firearms that don't end up in a situation where people are not being killed. And you're in a country which is perhaps the worst example of that, where with the proliferation of firearms, you have people being executed and killed daily from firearms, whether they're licensed or unlicensed. People are dying all the time from the use of firearms. That's not the kind of thing we want here. And it doesn't take far for us to see what can happen. I mean, we can point to St. Lucia, which had multiple killings over a 3-day period, which led to Grenada and the rest of the OECS countries having to supply additional law enforcement personnel through the RSS to help our brothers and sisters in St. Lucia to bring calm to some of the areas that were impacted. That's not the kind of thing we want in Grenada or in any other OECS island to be repeating itself. And it is firearms violence. It's not someone chopping someone. It is essentially gunplay taking place.
Yeah. Well, I say that because recently Jamaica has taken like a zero tolerance approach to firearm, where the Prime Minister came out publicly and said that anyone caught with a firearm, they could face as much as life imprisonment. Very harsh. I don't know if it's enacted, but he made that statement. To me, I'm thinking that a bold move like that would discourage the next would-be person on the street for even holding a firearm, even they know that the penalties would be so severe. Yeah. So is there more that the legislators could do, like how Jamaica is I mean, basically speaking out against the Prime Minister is speaking out against the severity of penalties. Is there more that the legislators could do at this point?
Well, no, certainly. As I said, in terms of reviewing the existing Firearms Act, we certainly can review the act and can, in fact, go to Parliament and pass legislation that significantly increases the penalties associated with illegal firearms. There's no question about that. That's certainly something we could do. And as I said, from a policy point of view, we are certainly reviewing the act to make a determination on that.
Yeah, certainly something that you could do. Is it something that the administration would do in a short time?
Right. Well, I'm saying we're reviewing it because, you see, I don't want to give the impression that there's a one solution to this issue. That would simply be part and parcel of a wider approach to how we ensure. Because remember, the mere fact that something is illegal, the mere fact that people may face significant consequences, i.e. life imprisonment or jail time, doesn't mean that it wouldn't happen. So I think what we and at the end of the day, what you want to do is in fact discourage people from getting firearms in the first place. So that's what I'm saying. It has to be a package approach, and it won't simply be a single solution. So yes, reviewing the Firearms Act, yes, looking at enacting stiffer penalties are something that we're considering. I can't tell you definitively right now the timeline by which we will want to consider this, but I can certainly tell you that we will be taking a much more holistic approach to how we look at violence first and foremost, and then second, gun-related violence.
Absolutely. Guys, we have a range of topics that you guys said that you would like to talk about. That was just one of the topics that people are very, very concerned about. Another very important topic that people are concerned about is healthcare. All right. Yes. Healthcare. What's the vision of the administration for improving healthcare services and facilities on the island?
All right. So I think it's a multifaceted approach. I think we've talked about one, the need to build a brand new state-of-the-art teaching hospital that also encompasses medical tourism. That's one. And the reason for advocating that model is the current situation with healthcare in Grenada is that the government has a budget, and that budget is used essentially to fund the entire healthcare system in Grenada. So a healthcare system is an expenditure model based one. To a large extent, it's free in the sense that for the most part, the people who go to and access our health centers or medical centers at the hospital, for the most part, do not have to pay for the service. The challenge with that is it means people who can pay are not paying. It means people who cannot pay, obviously, can't pay. And so we depend largely on taxpayers to fund our healthcare system. That system is clearly broken because our nurses and doctors and other related medical professionals, frankly, are not paid properly. And our facilities are not maintained properly. And there are challenges with procuring the necessary medical supplies because it is all expenditure driven. You have a fixed budget, and regardless of cost, there's no way to recover revenue. So we have to move to a revenue-based healthcare model that allows us to be able to maintain, provide for, and continuously improve our healthcare sector. So it has to be a mixture of revenue and to some extent expenditure, because the government will still have to subsidize healthcare. So that involves a number of things. We have to have a national health insurance, because the challenge with healthcare is that, it's easy to cover a dental visit or an eye visit or a regular checkup to a doctor. It's dramatically more different to cover major surgery or any major medical operation, because it becomes very expensive. And oftentimes what it does is that it bankrupts people. So you would find oftentimes that even when people have to leave Grenada for healthcare, essentially they are unable to afford it. So you find a lot of Grenadians either going around trying to raise funds or they're writing to the government for assistance, or they're writing to donor agencies to help them, etc., etc., etc. And a lot of that comes from the fact that there is no insurance to pay for it. So if we had insurance, certainly for the major medical type situations, it certainly would ease the burden on many of our citizens. But we recognize that the way insurance works is that you have to be able to pull the insurance, pull the resources together. And that's why we need a national healthcare system, so that everybody is contributing towards it, on the understanding that if you get ill, you will then be taken care of, if not totally, but at least to a significant extent, so that you do not become bankrupt. Because recall, certainly as an adult, if you have a major medical issue to deal with, it means you can't work, right? If you held up in hospital for a month or for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it means you can't work. And if you can't work, it means you run the risk of you're not asking, you're not in a position to earn revenue. And outside of sick leave and so on, which again sometimes does not cover you for your full income, you're already at a disadvantaged position. So we certainly need national health insurance to be able to allow us to buffer that. So we feel that if you have a state-of-the-art hospital that allows, one, people in the diaspora to feel confident that they can retire in Grenada, or that they can spend longer periods of time in Grenada, they can come back to Grenada, then it means they will bring their income to Grenada. And therefore, they will invest in Grenada because they feel confident that the healthcare services in Grenada can take care of them. Grenadians spend millions of dollars every year leaving Grenada to seek healthcare outside of Grenada. If we can retain that income inside of Grenada, it certainly means that right there is a basis for the revenue generation that we need to maintain our hospitals. But if you can't provide the services, then it basically means people are going to keep leaving. So we have to be able to provide the services. And let's face it, if a single Grenadian has to migrate to get medical care, assuming he doesn't have a family member to live by, he has to pay the taxi, he has to pay the hospital that he's going to, he may have to pay a hotel, and if a family member is accompanying them, all of this expenditure has to be spent as well. And so you're talking here sometimes a multiple of 3 or 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
It may very well be easier to hire a specialist and fly that specialist in to Grenada to have him conduct the same surgeries that 4 or 5 Grenadians would leave and have to spend 5 times multiples of 5 because you have to have hotel accommodation, etc., etc.
Right.
As compared to flying the specialist in, if we have the medical equipment, we have the hospital facilities, etc., that the care can be delivered here. So from where we sit, the model certainly makes sense to reverse the model and have it being driven more by revenue. We have St. George's University present. As you're aware, the doctors leave St. George's University and do their rotations in the US and the UK outside of Grenada.
Yes.
We have a state-of-the-art teaching hospital. Then it certainly allows, if not all of the doctors, some of them, to in fact remain in Grenada at that same facility and to conduct their rotations. What it means is then, one, you then have a lot more, at least, doctors, even if they're doing internships, who are available to the Grenadian public. So right there, accessibility becomes more affordable and more evident because you have more doctors who are staying on island to do the rotations, and so they're available to the public.
Yes.
2, if the doctors are staying longer in Grenada, it means they spend an additional 2 years in Grenada, they spend more money here, they help to drive the economic development here. So there are obvious advantages to doing so. Now, on the human resource side, we obviously have to train a lot more doctors. We obviously have to train a lot more nurses. And so that's an investment that we need to make significantly, because if we're going to open a new facility in a couple of years' time, we certainly need the human resources to facilitate that. And therefore, it would mean a significant investment in our doctors, a significant investment in our nurses, a significant investment in training new doctors, new nurses, certainly on the condition that we are looking to beef up the quality and quantity of healthcare practitioners that we have in Grenada. But we may also have to accept that we may have to import doctors, particularly specialists and so on. And I would say the first pool and the first area that we can start would be the several hundreds of Grenadian doctors and nurses who are currently in the diaspora, and who I'm sure, if given the assurance that there is that vision which we'll implement, will be prepared to come back to Grenada, because many of them do have family members and probably oftentimes left purely because they could not survive on the pay that they were getting. So I see someone is asking you, what's the plan to replace the mass exodus of nurses leaving Grenada? And I want to put that in context to say it's not a 1-year fix, right? Nurses are leaving all over the world. I think the UK has a chronic shortage of nurses. The US has a shortage of nurses.
Yeah.
Right? So we appreciate that we can't compete necessarily financially with some of the larger countries. But I think what we can certainly do is to develop a system where we can pay our nurses at a more competitive rate where we can pay our doctors at a more competitive rate on the assurance that we are turning the model of healthcare into a more revenue-driven one. So that we can say to them in 3, 4, 5 years, this is the vision, this is where we're looking to go, and we want you to be part of that of that vision that I just articulated. Now, as you are aware, we took the bold step of, in fact, paying all of the nurses in Grenada, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a nursing assistant, an additional $500 per month, every month for 2023. I think that, in a sense, is an indication of our commitment to saying to our nurses that, in fact, we value their services, and we certainly want them to remain in Grenada. We know some are still going to leave. That's natural, and persons are free to pursue what they may perceive as greener pastures elsewhere. But I often say the pasture is only greener because you are watering it. And for us to make the pasture greener in Grenada, obviously, we collectively have to water it. But healthcare is not just a government issue, right? And I want to emphasize this. The government is an inanimate thing. It's a human being who needs healthcare. And all of us have to work together to try and ensure that we make our healthcare system better, but also that we put less pressure on our healthcare system. And the less pressure comes from us being healthier.
Yes.
And so primary healthcare, preventative healthcare is key. And that starts with us. That starts with ensuring that we are not overweight. It starts with us ensuring that we exercise. It starts with us ensuring that we don't abuse alcohol. It starts with us ensuring that we are active and that we are active with our children. It starts with us ensuring that we eat healthier, that we eat more plant-based food. So if we're able to do so, that we take care of our oral health, the blood brushing and flossing of our teeth, ensuring that our children do so. So both individually, community-wise, and school-wise, starting with our children. If we start there, it certainly means that there will be less pressure on our medical stations, on our health centers, less pressure on the hospitals. So that is an integral part of what we need to do. So our primary healthcare system and educating ourselves about our health and making sure that our lifestyles promote healthy lifestyles is key as well to improving healthcare in Grenada. Because if you get to the stage where you need dialysis, it means to a large extent your healthcare is failing already. If it gets to the stage where you need to be amputated, it means that your healthcare is almost beyond redemption. And then the drag on productivity, because it means oftentimes someone else has to take care of you, or spend considerable amounts of time taking care of you, so they themselves can't be productive. And that's part of the challenge we face. So it is not just the post disease or post sick stage that we need to address. We also need to address the preventative stage and ensure that we lead healthy lifestyles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we're talking here with the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Nathan Mitchell. And of course, as I said earlier, we have an approval rating score that you guys are able to vote by reaction. So we had 75% approval rating. Guys, anybody could vote on this, right? Your vote would be only counted once, right? So if you approve of the work of the administration, you press that heart. If you're not so satisfied with your work of the administration, you press that thumbs up. And you could continue to press that throughout the duration of the program here, all right? So 76% approval rating thus far throughout all platforms. We are on several platforms, and it's taken into consideration all platforms, YouTube, Facebook, everyone. Well, not Facebook, not YouTube, but Facebook, all platforms on Facebook, all right? So we are 83% approval rating thus far. Let's see how it goes throughout the program. Prime Minister, there was media reports recently that there were a lack of medical or medication at the hospital. Can you address that?
Yeah, well, I've heard the media reports as well, and I think the issue was raised in Parliament as well. And as the leader of government business had indicated there, from time to time, and certainly I think part of the challenge that we inherited is that you find the suppliers were not paid, not by this administration, right? And so you naturally find whenever there's a change in administration, people sort of wait to see what happens, bearing in mind that you had suppliers who had not been paid. And so what the administration has been doing is essentially working out to ensure that these suppliers were in fact paid so that they could resume a regular supply of medication to the hospital. So that is really what I could say to that. Certainly from my perspective, and I think from the Minister of Health perspective, we will obviously do everything under our administration to ensure that suppliers are paid regularly on time and to ensure that the procurement process for all supplies is smooth and that we can ensure that there's always sufficient quantities to treat with whatever ailments people need at the hospital or the health centers. It doesn't mean that from time to time you may not have glitches, because as you would very well imagine, the government also depends on procuring supplies through some of our partners on island and through part of the OECS regional procurement process. So from time to time, you may find that there are glitches there that may impact the quantity of supplies we have. But outside of that, as I said, certainly from our end, we will do everything to ensure that at all times the supplies are adequate.
In Parliament, they were mentioned that there was so many. There was a lot. I can't remember what the opposition, the numbers that the opposition said, but then I believe someone on the government side said it was about 6 different medication. What is the total? What is the?
Well, I can't answer the question because I don't have the specifics. I think it was the Honorable MP for St. Mark who said she could provide the list. She didn't. I don't know whether subsequently she supplied it to the Leader of Government Business, but I think the Leader of Government Business would have indicated that he'd spoken to the Minister of Health, and that's the information he had. So I don't have any additional information specifically in relation to whether it's more than 6 or whether it was less than 6.
Right. Okay. All right. So we'll follow up on that because
but I can certainly have the Minister of Health, if necessary, address the issue.
Right. Okay. So we're in a situation right now. We're seeing an increased amount of dengue cases. Right. Does the government or the medical facilities have sufficient medication to treat for dengue symptoms?
Well, again, I can't answer that very specific question. I think the Chief Medical Officer and the Minister of Health will be better placed to address it. But I think certainly you would see that it was the Chief Medical Officer who highlighted, based on their tracking and paying attention to the diagnosis that was being made, that an increase in dengue had been observed. I think they also were tracking it based on the geographical location. And I think the Chief Medical Officer would obviously have highlighted to people the importance of ensuring that given that dengue is spread by mosquitoes, what we need to do to minimize the risk of this happening. So, but I would expect certainly that given the fact that the CMO and so on have been able to track this, that the Ministry of Health would obviously be taking the necessary steps to make sure that it can cope with any potential widespread outbreak of dengue.
Okay. Someone asked this question here in relation to health tourism. I remember seeing Angus Friday speaking about it, and I was very impressed by his presentation. Is that something that is imminent, that we are looking, or in short order, the government might be looking to see how they could implement that? I know it's not like it could happen tomorrow, but is that a focus of your administration?
Well, yes, and I think when I talked about the vision for a teaching hospital together with medical tourism, or what you call health tourism, that is precisely what I was speaking about. But it's not just health tourism from the point of view of a hospital that can cater to the needs of tourists, but I think it's to the wider context that Grenada has significant tourist features that could be exploited from a health tourism point of view. Grenada is one of the few places where you can go in 5 miles and go from white sand beaches to mountain range and waterfalls. Grenada is a very peaceful country. We've got sulfur springs. We've got a number of attributes, I think, that can certainly help us to exploit the health tourism. So whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation, that sort of aspect, mindfulness, all of those aspects that people look for. We certainly think Grenada has the opportunity to do so. But we think underpinning that would have to be, in our view, a state-of-the-art medical facility that can, in the event someone, for example, was here and something dramatic happened to them, that you want the assurance that, in fact, we have the medical facilities to take care of them. So I think to that extent, in a more traditional, classic medical sense, you want the state-of-the-art facility to ensure that you can promote that aspect of medical tourism. But in a more nuanced sense, in a more new age sense, you certainly want to be able to exploit things like spas, alternative treatment, herbal medication, mindfulness, yoga, those kinds of things as part of the tourism product that you can sell. Just even the safety of Grenada. We may take that for granted, but I would tell you this, living in a place like Trinidad is a stressful thing. That's the reality. It's stressful because of the crime situation. So you want to be able to sell Grenada as an alternate to a stressful life. If you live in a big city, if you live in a city that has crime or violence, that gives you anxiety, etc., so that you can come to Grenada and completely de-stress, be able to rejuvenate because it's safe, it's peaceful, it's clean, and you can have the benefit of the waterfall, of the mountain tops, of the Grandlands Beach, or some small remote beach that you could hike to a trail and get to, or going to Carrick and doing the scuba diving, that sort of thing. So I think health tourism is not just, you being able to get a tummy tuck or cosmetics surgery, but also all those other aspects. And I believe when the concept of Pure Grenada was in a sense coined, it probably was meant to address some of that. So we certainly have to do, I think, more in terms of exploiting that aspect of our marketing and boosting that side of our tourism.
Absolutely. Guys, again, we're chatting here with the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Deacon Mitchell. Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back. Don't move.
Grenadians and Friends of Grenada, the National Democratic Congress Support Group Canada cordially invites you to a gala event with the Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and Piti Martinique, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Saturday, July 1st at Bellevue Manor, 8083 Jane Street in Concord, Ontario, with cocktails from 6 p.m. and dinner at 7:30, featuring live entertainment, delegation speakers, and more. Ticket donation is $250. Proceeds go to the establishment of a party resource center in Grenada. Tickets are limited. The Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Saturday, July 1st at Bellevue Manor, 8083 Jane Street in Concord. For tickets and information, please call 647-859-4142 or 647-242-9256.
Of course, for the family in Toronto, this is coming up July 1st. I'm going to see you guys there as well. Guys, this is as much my conversation as it is yours. So the phone line will be open shortly so you could call and ask your questions. Chatting here with the Honorable Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell. And the approval rating now stands at 85.27%. And we keep going, guys. Invite, tag, share. We want to give us your honest look, honest feedback on the approval rating of this administration. All right. Let's see. I am getting some calls. I wasn't planning to take it yet, but let's see if we could do that right now. All right, Honorable Prime Minister, we have a few calls that's going to be coming in because I really wanted to invite our viewers to chime in. Okay, we got a call. Caller live, where are you calling us from?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm calling from Jamaica.
Jamaica, go right ahead.
I'd first like to hi to the Honorable Prime Minister. First, I'd like to congratulate him and his team and the government. I must say I'm happy and I'm pleased that I voted for them. I see that the plans that we voted for are coming to fruition. Some are taking a little longer, but I understand why. And a bit of the transparency with some of the stuff that is happening and why it is happening or why certain things didn't happen. I appreciate that. I've been trying to ask a question, which I'm not sure the Prime Minister can answer, but why did we move from the Isle of Spice to Pure Grenada? I'm not sure if Pure Grenada is effective. Did we do any public consultation before we move from the Isle of Spice to Pure Grenada? I'd also like to let him know that I'm not sure if I'm seeing much improvement in the health sector. I do agree where he said that we need a health insurance because that would have been one of my suggestions. So I hope we are actually working on that because I know that the last administration said that they were almost ready to implement that. I'm not sure if that was true. But if that was the case, then I'm hoping that we can almost be ready to implement that.
Okay.
Also,
Caller, you have to make it brief because we have a lot of calls. So just make it kind of brief.
Listen, this is the last one.
Okay.
Where climate change is concerned, and Minister James, I'm not sure if I'm seeing her presence in that ministry. And as someone who is very interested in that area, I'd like to see some more things like maybe more effective recycling and all of that. But anyway, I give somebody else another call and another opportunity. Bye.
Thank you, Jamaica. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, caller. Yes, Prime Minister.
Right. So, well, I'm sure Minister James is watching, and so if the caller feels that she needs to boost her profile a bit more, I will certainly convey the message to her. But I just want to assure you that Minister James is working very hard on the climate resilience front. And to a large extent, I think the entire government, in a lot of what we do, we recognize the need to build resilience into a lot of the projects. So whether it's infrastructure projects, whether it's tourism projects, whether it's education, whether it's things like community centers, whether it's our focus with NADMA, because we recognize that the impacts of climate change is something significant. So it's something that we are certainly putting a lot of effort into. And it may be that we perhaps just need to communicate a bit more of that to the public so that we understand. And to that point, I actually did a weekend Saturday morning hike from Pearls up to Batway on the coast. And part of the reason for doing so was to see firsthand myself the impact of climate change on the coastline of St. Andrew and St. Patrick, which to a large extent is almost completely destroyed.
Yes.
I mean, sargassum, sargassum is everywhere. And when you stand at any bluff and you look back, all you see is sargassum.
Yeah.
There's significant sand mining going on in Grenada, despite the ban on sand mining, which is against our own interests. And that too is contributing to the destruction of the coast. And then most painfully, there is significant littering. I mean, we were picking up plastic bottles and garbage that people come, they picnic, and they just simply leave there. It's terrible. So we really have to, as Grenadians, take our environment seriously. So I'm happy the caller has raised the issue of climate resilience. It's something we take seriously, and certainly I expect Minister James to take the caller's, I would call it, recommendation, that perhaps from a PR perspective, we could spend a bit more time talking about that. I know the Solid Waste Management Authority has significant plans to also address recycling, particularly also the separation of garbage to ensure that we can separate things that are biodegradable from things that are not. So a pilot will be rolled out soon on that. So stay tuned. Some of that will be coming. As to why we went from Pure Grenada to Isle of Spice, I mean, obviously this didn't happen under our administration, but certainly my understanding was that
from Isle of Spice to Pure Grenada.
From Isle of Spice to Pure Grenada, thank you. Obviously that happened a while back. My understanding is that some work did go into thinking through the change. Some consultations did take place. It perhaps has not worked out the way in which it was expected, and it's perhaps something we could look at again. But for us to remain the Isle of Spice, we have to plant spices. We have to get, remember, Ivan wiped out the vast majority of our spices. And that's why we campaign on a spice replanting program, because we recognize that it's critical for us to, in fact, replant our spices. That is something the Ministry of Agriculture is working on. And so we expect, again, that is something over the next several months and years to come that we will work on to ensure that despite or in spite of the Pure Grenada name, that we certainly still remain known as a significant producer of spices within Grenada. And so finally, on the National Health Insurance, yes, we are working assiduously to continue that project. I think it was derailed to some extent by COVID-19 because the focus sort of went to a large extent on COVID. I'm expecting that in the not too distant future, we will make some public announcements in relation to the National Health Insurance. So once we are in a position to do so, we will obviously invite members of the media, invite the public to do so. But it's something I'm very passionate about, right? Because I'm saying a national health insurance doesn't always have to mean a government type insurance. We want national health insurance simply to mean that each citizen has access to health insurance. That could be private health insurance as well. It could be health insurance provided by your employer. If you're part of a group medical scheme that at least gives you some option for recovering your medical costs, and crucially, an option to have major medical surgery paid for. And it makes a big difference. So it is, it is national health insurance, both from a government perspective, but also critically from a private insurance perspective as well. And if we can help to make that more affordable and more accessible to all our citizens, then obviously that would be key. There are already private health care providers who provide medical insurance like Sagico and so on. A lot of it is employee-based, as in you're part of a group health insurance, but that helps, right? Because for many employees, if they did not have that, they would have nothing to fall back on. So it's part and parcel of the development of that sector that we're trying to drive.
Thank you. We got another caller on the line, been holding for a little bit. Caller live, where are you calling us from?
Hi, good evening. I'm calling from Boston, Mass.
Boston, Massachusetts. How you doing?
I am good. Good evening, Mr. PM. My question to you is, since you've been in office, what is the most stressful situation you encountered and how did you handle it?
Good evening, Boston, Massachusetts. That's a very interesting question. The most stressful situation. For once, I do not have an answer. Because I guess I'm trying to rate some of the challenges I've had. I don't know if I view the job that way. You know, I mean, there are challenges. There are times when you, for example, you get news that you'd prefer not to. So I can give an example.
Right.
You know, when I discovered that we had to pay the salaries of the staff of the Marketing and National Importing Board because they could not do so. Obviously, it was not something you wanted to hear, because the fact that a statutory body which has a monopoly on things like the importation of sugar, and I don't need to say how much people here like sugar, could not pay its own staff. It was sad. You know, so in that sense, if you want to equate stressful with sadness, it certainly was a sad experience to have to look at, because you then understand that obviously you would have to take some significant steps to start correcting the situation. So I think, you know, from time to time we run into those situations where you recognize that you've inherited a situation that is bad, and it falls upon you now to take corrective measures to change it or improve it. But I would say collectively, I think what has been most painful for me is the way in which I think the people who work for the government, I think, have been treated over the years. I've had countless stories of persons who, frankly, were just treated poorly, whether it's been made to act for extended periods of time, whether it's people stuck with the same salary for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, notwithstanding the appeals to have it improved, and oftentimes salaries that are very, very low, that they can't survive on. You know, whether it's people simply being transferred to and put to work in a place where basically, they have nothing to do, or the physical facilities under which they work is just awful, and no effort is being made to address it. No willpower from those who are in power. That has been painful to watch, because it's difficult for me to understand why, just at a human level, people treat each other that way, especially when it's not their money. I mean, at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money.
Right.
So it's not as if it's your personal money and therefore I could refuse to pay you something you're entitled to. So there's been a lot of that, a lot of abuse of power, sometimes at all levels throughout the system of government. So that has been, I think, painful to look at and to realize that it's gone on. But obviously we are trying to take steps to correct that and to say to people, that's not how you treat each other. That's not how you're going to build camaraderie. That's not how you're going to have team spirit. And that's not how you're going to get the transformation agenda achieved. So that is something that we probably have to work on for a long time. So certainly that has been one of the things that has been rather disappointing. The other aspect, I think, is that Grenada's good name has been sullied. And particularly because I think the former administration took an approach of essentially engaging in the sale of diplomatic passports. And we give an example with the Polish gentleman. And in many instances, and I'm certainly not saying there should not be instances where non-Grenadians or non-nationals could be appointed as ambassadors and so on. But I mean, I said we met several names of persons who are given diplomatic passports, and you honestly don't know why or what they're doing with it, outside of the fact that they probably simply bought it. And that has consequences for Grenadians as a whole, because it means you are threatening the integrity of Grenada's sovereignty. You are threatening sometimes our partnerships and relationships with other countries. And I'll give an example. As you're aware, because of the way in which the same former administration completely mishandled the offshore banking sector and that prior era, visas were slapped on Grenadians traveling to Canada. And we've not been able to get that lifted up to now. So that is something that has cost us. And so to me, the fact that they would take this sort of careless, reckless attitude with our sovereignty and with the way in which they seem not to be mindful of the consequences it may have on regular Grenadians is also something that has been painful for me. So, I give those 3 examples because I see them more as challenges rather than as, stressful, but it's only 1 year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that I'd be tested in many ways more than one over the next 4 years. So let's see.
A couple quick questions on that, right? I wanted to go into infrastructure, but there's something that I want to touch on there because you mentioned it. You spoke about the $150,000 that your administration had mentioned a couple months ago, and how one set of money went one place and the other went to the other place. What is the current status of that? Because we haven't heard anything. Is there an investigation? What is the status?
I mean, from the government's end?
Yes.
Well, I mean, from my end, there was no investigation. The facts were laid clear. We clearly said what happened, right? We did not issue the gentleman with any passport because that is how this thing was brought to our attention. He reached out to say he paid these sums on the condition that he was going to be made a diplomat and be given a diplomatic passport. And we asked him to verify it, and he verified, in fact, and it was quite clear that the sums were paid. As I said, paid to the New National Party and paid to the government of Grenada. And therefore, it was quite clear to us what this was, given the time when it was happening, that it was campaign contributions to the New National Party, and the balance of the money was paid to the government of Grenada, right? So that's clear. We indicated clearly to the gentleman we would not be refunding any money to it, and that we would not be issuing with any passport. I believe there might have been a lawyer letter written on behalf of the gentleman threatening legal action. I don't think anything further, as far as I'm aware, has happened since then.
Yeah, because the former administration basically dared the current administration to produce the cabinet conclusion, because the former prime minister said there is none. There could be none cabinet conclusion that stated that. Is there a problem releasing that cabinet conclusion to verify, or is that a process?
But I don't need to do that. It's quite clear. We released the receipts, which showed how the monies were paid and who the monies were paid to. So I mean, and those were released to the media. So I mean, that's clear. I don't have to debate about this. So I'm saying the reality is, they promised the gentleman that he would be made a Polish diplomat and be issued with a passport, and told him to pay monies. They told him how to pay it. Pay a certain amount to the New National Party. He clearly paid it. Pay a certain amount to the Treasury. He clearly paid it. Right? If you add the two sums up, you know what you would get. If you separate the two terms, you clearly see what was paid. Right? Almost the same amount. Almost, just a little bit less was paid to the New National Party as was what was paid into the Treasury. That's it. Right? So any talk about anything else, there's nothing really to talk about. That's the facts, right? And they have not denied that this money was received by the New National Party. And I think really what the journalists should be asking them is what they use the money for. You know, so that's really what happened. So where we were from the government's perspective, obviously the important thing was to ensure that no such passport would be issued to any such gentleman in those circumstances.
Right. Okay. The visa restriction, you spoke about that, you touched on that.
Yes.
Is there any possibility that we might see a reversal in that policy from Canada? Is the government working on that to reverse that policy and the visa restriction in Canada?
Well, we have been working on this. I expect that the Canadian foreign minister would in fact be talking about Canada has just recently conducted a review of its visa requirements or visa waiver requirements, certainly as it relates to OECS and CARICOM countries. The ambassador has communicated to me what their position is, but out of deference to them, it is their position, not Grenada's position, obviously. I would wait for the Canadians to make their public statements on it, and then thereafter I will comment if necessary. Right,
because you did say that was the policy before, but there's a new administration, new sheriff in town, new policies, new way of dealing with it.
No, certainly we are advocating as much as we can to ask the Canadians to reverse the imposition of visas on Grenadians. But ultimately, that's a decision that they have to make. We will continue advocating and continue trying to persuade them that there really is no significant risk to Canada from the waiving of visa requirements. But outside of that, it's not just the visa requirements. As you're aware, you have to do biometrics. And currently, Grenada does not have a visa processing center, or what they call a VAC center. And so Grenadians are required to fly to Trinidad or fly to St. Vincent or St. Lucia, which have VAC centers. So from where we sit, even if the visa requirements remain, we obviously, it would be nice to have a VAC center here so that Grenadians can do the visa processing here without having to incur the additional cost of flying out of the country to do it. We do have a commitment, I think, from the Canadians, however, in the interim, to have more frequent visits of their technical team to Grenada, so that they can take the biometrics from Grenadians without the Grenadians having to leave Grenada. So we do have that commitment from them.
Nice. And I know that you're going to be in Canada in a few weeks.
Yes.
That would be good. I know the folks in Canada, if you're watching the folks in Canada, you will be able to meet and greet the Prime Minister firsthand there when he makes his debut visit to Canada as the Prime Minister of Grenada. Looking forward to that as well. Let's move on to the infrastructure. I know time is crunching on us, so we want to get to that part. Recently, your government was criticized for the handling of the Molineux project. The former Minister of Infrastructure said that there was some things that was done that was not supposed to be done. Hence the reason why it would cause significant budget overpayment. In addition, there would be major problems. Where are we now with the Molineux project?
Well, I haven't heard what the former minister said, but if he said so, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Let me start off with where we were. When we inherited this project, the former administration had issued a contract to a contractor, but the administration had actually not done what needed to be done to allow the contractor to actually take possession of the site and to commence work. As you're aware, this slippage occurred in an area where there were several houses that were impacted by it. And the government needed to acquire these properties and pay the people compensation in order for the contractor to take control of the entire site to do the construction work. That had not been done. So even though a contract had been issued, I suspect they issued it because it was election time and they were forced to try and show that they were doing something. Even though they issued the contractor himself could not proceed because you'd be trespassing on private people's property. So the various homes that were impacted had to be acquired, right? And it was this administration, through particularly the work of the Minister of Mobilization, Implementation and Transformation, who went about engaging in the several discussions, negotiations, and eventual agreement with these persons to agree on compensation and to agree on the acquisition process to acquire the sites. So that obviously had to be done first. After that was done, then the contractor took possession of the site. This government subsequently would have obviously proceeded with the same contract that had been awarded so that the contractor could commence work. The minister may or may not be aware, but I'm sure he is aware, that after the work commenced, there's a major Nawassa water line that runs through that area. Major Nawassa water line. And that pipe broke. And obviously several gallons, if not hundreds of gallons of water would have emerged on the site. Now, if anybody knows anything about the site is extremely unstable. It is why you had this problem in the first place, right? And so that water situation would have made it worse. And so as a result of that, the folks at the Ministry of Infrastructure and the contractor and the ministry's engineers would have had to take action to rectify the situation. So it clearly meant no work would commence until the Nawassa pipe was renovated and in a sense replaced and put in a position where the work could continue so that the pipe itself could not be damaged. And the pipe obviously needs to continue functioning to supply water to the south of the island. So subsequent to that, the engineers at the Ministry of Infrastructure would have made a determination to, and let me explain this, the original design, which was done by Beston, did not contemplate interfering with the hillside.
Right, yes.
Because the hillside was unstable. They took the engineering design or did it in such a way that they felt they should leave the hillside without interfering with it.
Yeah, that's
because
what
that's
not,
right.
it should not be touched. That hillside should not have been touched.
Right. No, that's their engineering design. Now, after the Nawassa pipe broke, the Ministry of Infrastructure made the decision that they had to touch the hillside because they probably felt they needed to try and find some alternative solution to the situation. And that is why they would have gone into the hillside and would have engaged in the excavation and would have been attempting to bench the hillside. While this was going on, we had internal discussions as to what were the best options. And what we did would have we would have asked Beston, who did the original design, to come back to the site to look at what had been done and to address the situation and look at whether or not re-engineering or redesigning of the site was not necessary. And we've engaged them. They've gone about that process. They've engaged with some of the Cuban engineers who are at the ministry, as well as our own folks at the ministry. And after several rounds of discussions and debate, they've proposed a revised, if I may call it, new design. And therefore, what we are seeking to do is to address three things: the construction of the road, 1, the stabilization of the hillside, 2, and the stabilization of the, what I will call the bottom side, which is the area between the sea and the road itself.
Yes.
Because let us remember, it is the area between the sea and the road itself which first crumbled, and then subsequently the road itself collapsed, right? So this means we have to ensure that we stabilize the hillside, that we construct the road, and that we can also stabilize the bottom side. So I'm not an engineer. I'm not going to obviously get into any engineering, suggest that in any way that I will argue with engineers as to what the best options are. But what I will say to you is that as recently as last week, we had Beston here together with the Ministry of Infrastructure presenting the design, not just to us at the Ministry of Infrastructure. We invited the Grenada Institute of Professional Engineers to appear, to make their comments, to make their suggestions, to raise any concerns they had. We invited the Planning and Development Authority to do the same. So all I'm saying here is that we are not, we at the Ministry of Infrastructure are not going to pretend that we know it all. And even when we retain consultants to do the design and so on, we are happy to have those consultants present the designs to relevant stakeholders, to have them give their input. And from all indications, I think everyone is accepting that, in fact, the redesign is superior to the original design that was made. Because let's face this fact: although the original design did not contemplate touching the hillside, it doesn't mean that the hillside may not have come down. Because if the hillside is unstable, it's unstable. Right. And what might have been holding up is the vegetation. But it doesn't mean that with heavy rains, it may not have come down, in light of the fact that the bottom had already moved, and in light of the fact that you have heavy equipment on the site. And once you have heavy equipment, you have vibrations.
Yes.
So there still was and is a risk. And when I toured the site the very first time with Beston, they highlighted that the risk was from the hillside. And although they had not designed, their design did not contemplate touching it, they recognized that risk remained. So really and truly, what we are seeking to do is to mitigate, in a sense, all of the risk: the hillside risk, the bottom side risk, while at the same time trying to get the road built. And let me remind you, there's probably been more action and quick action since this administration has taken over in relation to Molinet, and we are telling the people what is going on, than for the entire year and a half, almost 2 years that the site sat there, and we had no clue what was being done in terms of ensuring that we can get it rebuilt.
Right. The former Minister Cox also mentioned about the firing of a contractor, hence the reason why he believed that things went helter-skelter after that.
I don't know what he's talking about. The contractor has not changed. The contractor is the same contractor.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good for contrast, because, again, I don't have the clip to play it back, but I remember hearing something. I remember hearing that mentioned in the, I stand corrected, but I do remember him saying that, but I'll pull that clip up and put it out there so that I could make clarification on it. But I believe that was mentioned. All right. Prime Minister, how are we looking on time?
I think we've got about, I was still 1 hour, so I think we are about 15 minutes gone, so we probably have another 15 minutes to wrap.
Okay, great. So your approval rating stands at about 81 currently. Guys, you could still continue to vote at just by pressing the heart if you are in full approval of the administration. Again, anyone could vote wherever you are. If you're not in approval of the administration work so far, it's been almost a year, you could press the thumbs up. Let me play this clip back for you, Mr. Prime Minister, because this was said, this was mentioned, this was in press. This is the former Prime Minister speaking about the UK SIFT program. Take a look.
You sit in government and you have a project that the NNP negotiated. Prime Minister James Cameron came to Grenada. He came to 2 countries in the Caribbean. You remember that? the Prime Minister of Britain. And before he left, he announced almost $80 million grant for your little country called Grenada. It was decided by the cabinet, and Brother Bowen being Minister of Finance, and of course Minister of Works, with the expertise and so on. We worked together and decided that the Western Main Road project is critical. The water situation and the solid waste situation needs to be upgraded. So we decided, grant money, this is not money you have to pay back, These are money given to you.
I don't want to play back the whole clip, but essentially the former Prime Minister was saying that your administration basically lapsed on the project. The over $70 million plus that was supposed to come in. You lapsed on the project, hence the reason why we didn't get that full amount of money. I know that there was an update on it, but what's your response to that media report or that utterance by the former Prime Minister?
I was smiling. That's my response. I mean, what he's saying is a joke. He said the Prime Minister who came from the United Kingdom was James Cameron. Prime Minister Cameron. Do you know how many Prime Ministers have since passed since James Cameron in the United Kingdom? You know how much that should tell you the length of time that has passed since this money was made available, and how the former administration did absolutely nothing. They did absolutely nothing.
It's actually, is it David Cameron or James
Cameron?
David Cameron. Right. He said James Cameron, but he
said James. David Cameron. Right. They did absolutely nothing. Right. So as I said, you could come to David Cameron was the UK Prime Minister when they had Brexit. Right, and he resigned subsequently. You can go through the number of British Prime Ministers that have had. That's probably an indication of how much time has passed since the administration sat and did absolutely nothing with this project. When we assumed office, as Minister Andy Williams so rightly pointed out, we assumed office in June. By October, November, we were made clear. It was made clear to us, one, with the UK's own issues, and two, because of the significant delays and lack of implementation with the projects, that basically we were at risk for losing the grant funding, which had been approved probably as much as 5 or 6 years prior to that, if I'm not mistaken, since 2016 or 2017. We're in 2023. So for 5 years, they did nothing, which is customary with the low implementation. So the reality is, and it's not, and I'm making this point to say it to you, because there's a pattern here, Whenever we had grant funding or concessionary funding from international organizations or multilateral organizations, the implementation rates are low. They are low either because of the inability to understand the procurement, the inability to ensure that the awards of contracts are being done in a transparent manner. And so you always find high rates of low implementation when the funding is being provided by these international bodies. But when it's local funding, meaning when it's taxpayers' money, well, the contracts are awarded quickly because there's no transparency, you see. There's no international procurement guidelines that you have to meet because it's taxpayers' money and you could just issue the contracts if you want, right? And that is the pattern that we found. So no effort has been made to beefing up our capacity to implement projects which are funded by the World Bank or the IMF or by things like even sometimes the Caribbean Development Bank, because you have to be transparent. You have to be fair with the tendering and the bidding process and the procurement process, because these institutions obviously hold you accountable. But when it's local money, you could bypass all of that because you could handpick and cherry pick who the contractors are. And you can have award contracts with persons who oftentimes don't give you value for money. So this conversation about if you have grant money, free money, as you said, money you don't have to pay back, you've had it for 5 years, why would you not have spent it? Why would you not have implemented the projects? Why would you not have given NOASA and encouraged NOASA to get the human resources and build its capacity to implement the project? And it is not just the UK SIF project, there's another project, G-Cruise, that NOASA is currently implementing. Again, 5, 6, 7 years. very little implementation for one reason or the other. The funds comes from the German government again, another international government that will hold you to transparency and to high standards. So this sort of comment really, as I said, is something you laugh at, because you could just listen to the comment and you hear the lack of sincerity in what is being said. So I treat this basically as a sort of political grandstanding, really.
Yeah. And there were reports from your administration that over 70 million was retained after that fact. How did the government, what did you have to do to get that?
Well, I mean, once we got news in November of what was on the horizon, we spent significant time meeting with the Caribbean Development Bank, meeting with UK CIF, as well as even from a regional level, because the UK CIF program was not just for Grenada only, it was also for Dominica, right? And so even at the highest levels, Prime Minister Skirt and I had conversations about how we would approach the UK government on the matter, because the commitment of the UK CIF grant funding would have enabled us to approach the Caribbean Development Bank to seek counterpart funding to address those projects. And so we felt, notwithstanding the fact that clearly some blame should have been ascribed to Grenada because of the lack of implementation, we certainly felt that with a new administration, we ought to be given the opportunity to demonstrate that our implementation rate would be far better, and also to highlight the prejudice that would be brought to us, because we would then have to find counterpart funding elsewhere to match the funding that was available from the Caribbean Development Bank. So I think together with the Caribbean Development Bank, together with the president of the CDB and the vice president, as well as Prime Minister Skirt from Dominica, we obviously would have approached the UK CIF authorities and to underscore the importance of ensuring that we get the funding. And recall it was two projects. It was the Western Main Road as well as the Southern Water project.
Yes.
And so once we recognized that there was an opportunity to retain some of the funding, we also had to make a choice as to which of the two was critical and which was more implementable.
Right.
And we certainly think that given the significance of the importance of water, they need to address the sewage situation, given the significant development we have taken place in the south. We also felt that it was important to, if we had a choice, to certainly go for that one. And then the other part of it is, obviously, I think the Western Main Road itself, we have to relook the project, because the truth is we need more than just widening of bridges. We really need to, in my view, a more transformative road of the West Coast. And the Molyneux situation is a perfect example of why that is needed. So I think we have to take a more ambitious look at the Western Main Road and relook the entire project to really see how we can build a new road, frankly, that could get us from St. George's to the north of the island in considerable less time. And build a modern new road for Grenada. We've really not had a new road built in Grenada, frankly, in the last 50 years. And so that is kind of where we're looking at. So from that perspective, we recognize that a new, so to speak, Western Main Road was going to be a more transformative project that would require deeper study, deeper surveying, deeper consulting, as well as a deeper feasibility study, rather than continue with the same winding hairpins, the same undulating road that currently exists, because of the fact that you face the same risk, like the kind of land slippage and so on that would have occurred in Molyneux.
Yeah. Prime Minister, we got the last commercial break, and the last 5 minutes, when we come back, last 2 or 3 minutes or so, I want to find out a little bit about your thoughts on the year that just passed. So
Sure.
We'll be right back. Don't move.
When your choice, class, and taste says luxury, visit JTS Luxury Home. With our spring into summer sale, all overstocked items must go. We stock a wide assortment of modern furniture, bedding, and home decor. This sale runs into midsummer or while stocks last. JTS Luxury Home, 467 Thomas Boylan Street, between Pitkin and East New York Avenue in Brooklyn, where opulence meets affordability.
The Miss Caribbean USA Summer Body Pageant Committee invites you and yours to New York's hottest summer fashion event. It's the Miss Caribbean USA Summer Body Pageant 2023. One night, one spacious and gorgeous location. 6 nations. Miss Grenada, Miss Panama, Miss Haiti, Miss Dominican Republic, Miss Guyana, and Miss Jamaica. Get your $40 early bird tickets on or before May 8th at eventbrite.com. Advance tickets cost $50 or you pay more at the door. Elegance, intelligence, poise, and beauty unbound. And performing live from Jamaica, DeVille.
I'm thinking about you.
Passionately memorable, DeVille.
Baby, I'm sorry for praying.
Along with New York's finest, including the Hitman, Inspector. Those up at 4 p.m., showtime 6 p.m. Be seated early at the J-Loft, 1055 East 45th Street, Brooklyn, New York. For more info, contact 754-301-1230 or email summerbodyinfo@gmail.com. Miss Caribbean USA Summer Body Pageant 2023, Sunday, 25th June. It's going to be epic.
Wine the Caribbean girl.
Also, guys, let me tell you quickly about the Amazing Colors Monday Night Mass. If you're playing Monday Night Mass in Grenada, it's all about Amazing Colors. You could get your packages right now at mnngrenada.com. That's mnngrenada.com. We have limited package, guys. Monday Night Mass with Amazing Colors. Get your packages now. Yeah. All right. We're back again, guys, with the Prime Minister of Grenada, Honorable Dickon Mitchell. Could you believe that it is almost a year? It is.
No, the time has flown by for sure.
Yes. What, I said, just put it into perspective for me, right? What has changed in your life in this year? I mean,
well, everything. Yeah, everything has changed. You know, I mean, granted, leading up to the campaign, you know, once I got involved in public life, I kind of recognized my ability to practice law would be virtually zero, but I didn't expect it would happen that dramatically. Right. I mean, I think literally from the 1st of November, certainly between November and December, there was very little practice. And then once we got into January, you know, I kind of recognized I had to go back to my staff and at the firm and say, you know, I'm kind of sorry, but I didn't think I'd be saying goodbye this swiftly.
Wow.
But it does look that as if I'm not going to be able to practice at all. The one promise I made and I kept was to, you know, and I spoke to him today. One of my staff who'd been with me throughout the process actually became a lawyer in June of 2022. And so I actually had the privilege and honor of calling him to the bar, I think on the 21st of June, 2 days before the elections.
Wow.
So I was actually looking back at the photos. So that's the last time I actually did anything closely resembling the practice of law, which is to call another lawyer to the bar. And I spoke to him today and I was saying, you know, his anniversary is coming up, and he laughed and said, so 2 years. So so obviously that has changed dramatically. That's one obvious aspect of it. The second thing is just getting used to the fact that you're not an anonymous person. You know, you can't go somewhere without someone recognizing you or speaking to you or talking to you or wanting a photo. So clearly that part, you know, but I mean, it was happening before, but I mean, now you know, obviously as I hold the office of Prime Minister, it's a bit of a duty and obligation as opposed to when I was campaigning, I was leader of NDC, but I had no official public role. So that clearly has changed as well. Obviously the traveling on state business, that too has obviously changed a lot. So it's, you know, on a personal level, you have to get used to having people around you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore I kind of say when you leave home, you have to have your game face on all the time. So there's that. But then just the challenge of, I would also say being patient, you know, because I think coming from the private sector, I could be, you know, you results oriented. And so obviously in the public sector, it's not always like that. So managing my own expectations of how quickly things will improve. And I guess managing the public's expectation of how quickly things will improve is also part of what we have to deal with. The other aspect I would say is, you know, I'm encouraged because I have a lot of people, sometimes complete random strangers, calling to say they're praying for me.
Yes.
Or they're praying for the government. You know, there's a lot of that. So we do have on the 23rd of June at Lassages, you know, well, culminates at Lassages, but the 23rd of June we wanted to be a day of national prayer, culminating with a candlelight vigil at the Lassages playing field, where it kind of all began, you know, a year ago. So we're going to invite the public to come out with your candles, preferably not those that actually have a live flame because we want to be safe.
Yes.
But come out, there'll be a lot of singing, a lot of praying, a lot of devotions, and just being grateful for the fact that, we've seen through the year, in a sense, relatively uneventful negatively, but I think very eventful positively. And I say this because, for me, the most gratifying aspect of this job is actually children. I never really anticipated me getting involved in politics would lead to from 2, 3, 4-year-old kids to teenagers to young adults basically walking up to me. And yesterday at Lassages, I attended church service there, and after the church there were a group of young girls, and one of them said to me, she asked this question, how does it feel being the prime minister? And after I answered, she said, you know what, I'm going to take that prime ministership from you. And I shook her hands and I said, I'm ready to pass on the baton. So that's inspiration. It means basically, I said, and Grenada has never had a female prime minister, so you have something to look forward to. So that has really been, I think, the inspiring factor. The fact that kids are interested in politics, the fact that kids, I think, are interested in nation building, augurs well for Grenada, because it means that they care about what happens to the country, they care about the direction the country goes in. And I think that I couldn't ask for more in that regard.
Yeah. And Alison wants to know, how is your family coping with it?
I think my family is coping fairly well. I think the two most important people would be my kids. I think they have adjusted relatively well. I try and make sure, they have their own lives. The fact that I'm prime minister really has nothing to do with them. It's a decision I made. So I owe it to them to try and keep their lives as normal as possible. I believe they've forgiven me for taking up this job. And, I try and be as involved as I can in their personal lives and their school lives. Nonetheless, so that's very important to me. So I think certainly from that perspective, they've been well. But overall, my family has been very, very, my family, my extended relatives, everybody's been very supportive. I sometimes say to myself, if I had discussed with my family that I was about to do this before, I'm not so sure that they would have agreed. But now that I've done it, I think they've all been very, very supportive. So I couldn't ask for more.
Yeah. And finally, Mr. Prime Minister, if you had to rate yourself from a 10 being the highest, right? How would you rate yourself as Prime Minister?
I'm a very harsh critic of myself.
Yeah.
I'm a very harsh critic of myself because I tend to feel that, you're never good enough, that you have to do more. You have to strive for more. So, I was looking at an interview with Kes, and I think he was saying he doesn't know what success is because he doesn't want to get caught up in the former hit. He had a former hit, and so, he's still feeling good about that former hit, and therefore he's not able to make another hit. So for me, I would say it's just 1 year. So I really would perhaps prefer to answer that question 5 or 10 years from now. Because then I should be able to look back and say, okay, we were able to, move Grenada forward. And that's really what it is. I think on the weekend, I was having a conversation with a colleague, and I was saying that really is still the goal. The transformation is really in its embryonic stage. And the goal, so there's no place for complacency. There's no, in my mind, place for tapping myself on the back and saying I've done a good job, because we just started. So what really we need to do is keep galvanizing Grenadians, keep showing the vision, keep getting more people to buy the vision and go to work on behalf of Grenada. So I think it's too early to even be doing things like appraising or rating myself, and I should really be focused on ensuring that, we achieve some of the things we've done. So my approach is, if we tick one box, I go to next, and there are a lot more boxes that need ticking, and I think that's really where it is. We've just started. So if I had to rate myself, I would say we've just started.
Just started. Okay, so we asked that question, as I was saying earlier, to our viewership. Everyone had the opportunity to vote, and this is your approval rating at 1 year in this, right? Your approval rating stands right now at 83.87%. And this is a wide cross-section of viewers throughout Facebook that's watching this right now. So it's like a 8, almost a 9, 8.5, somewhere around there. So this is pretty good. I have a lot of political capital to spend still, and in this 1 year. I guess it's not as hard on you as you are on yourself, by the way.
Yeah, well, I'm grateful to the viewers for being kind to me. You know, and I'm going to obviously say I'm humbled, and thank you for the approval rating. Thank you for the support. But no, I mean that seriously. That there's a lot of work to do, and I think it's just started, and we just have to keep going. But obviously, getting the support, I think is critical. Knowing that people are backing and encouraging you, and criticism is welcome as well, because obviously there are things that we may get wrong, or things we didn't consider, we should consider, and it would be good to have people point that out. And I think that's the only way in which we can improve and grow. So I think, we have to, in a sense, compete with ourselves to be better the following day than we were the day before. And one way of doing that, obviously, is to have people like you do your polls, have viewers comment, and if we getting it wrong, for them to tell us, so that we can evaluate and reevaluate and self-correct. So thank you for the support.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, in any democracy, strong opposition and strong media is always good. It makes the government better.
Absolutely.
So I definitely agree with you that there should be opposition, there should be criticism. And I think that your administration is doing a good job in listening to the criticisms that has been waged. Even on myself, I would hit with the criticism. Once I see it, I'll talk about it. Yeah. Bar none. All right. But I thank you so much. And
well, thank you very much for having me, sir. It's a pleasure. And I mean, congratulations again on your 10 million engagements this month. I know it sounds like a pretty massive number.
Yeah.
So as they say, and it's the same way, you can continue moving forward, continue improving every time. And I think you've been doing that. Hence the reason why your show obviously is getting that kind of coverage. So the government has to learn from you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. I remember when I had one viewer, and that one viewer, I found out later, it was myself watching myself.
Well, you have to start somewhere.
It was me watching me. I have one viewer. And that one viewer just it was myself. I think I have my brother on the line. Hello, are you there?
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening, my PM. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you doing?
All right, happy to hear you on the. You're doing very well, man. I congratulate you on everything that you do, man.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, I want to ask you this question. I noticed last year it was on the Job band, playing the Job.
Yes, sir.
You play Monday Night last week.
I don't know if I should say this, but I've never played Monday Night Mass. When they started Monday Night Mass, I was like, that's not mass. I was a job man and a what you call traditional fancy mass. So I always protested Monday Night Mass. But the fact that I protested doesn't change the fact that it became, in a sense, the biggest part of Carnival in Grenada. So even if I may think otherwise, its success speaks for itself. So I generally, I guess, because I enjoy Juve so much, that I need to go and rest for Mass on Tuesday.
Well, I don't care what you say, Mr. Prime Minister. I'm dropping a package off by your office.
Right.
All right. To force the agenda. You have to be in the band. Probably it's the first time you go play a Monday Night Mass. It'll be nice.
Well, my son is as tall as me. Well, he's taller than me, and he could pass as my body does. So he might enjoy the Monday Night Mass.
Either way, I drop in the package. Thank you so much, Prime Minister, for that with us. We appreciate you. Keep doing a great job.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Prime Minister of Grenada, Honorable Deacon Mitchell, with a conversation here with us. Guys, let's take a quick commercial break, and I'll come back with some closing remarks. Don't move. We'll be back.
Grenadians and friends of Grenada, the National Democratic Congress Support Group Canada cordially invites you to a gala event with the Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and Piti Martinique, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Saturday, July 1st at Bellevue Manor, 8083 Jane Street in Concord, Ontario, with cocktails from 6 p.m. and dinner at 7:30, featuring live entertainment, delegation speakers, and more. Ticket donation is $250. Proceeds go to the establishment of a party resource center in Grenada. Tickets are limited. The Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Saturday, July 1st at Bellevue Manor, 8083 Jane Street in Concord. For tickets and information, please call 647-87-242-9256.
Again, guys, we want to thank the Prime Minister. In fact, that's the cup, Liberation Cup for Monday Night Mass. So the Prime Minister getting the package, Monday Night Mass. All right, guys. Again, if you play Monday Night Mass, you play Monday Night Mass with amazing colors, and we're forcing the Prime Minister to play Mass with amazing colors, guys. Package available now. You can get it at mnngrenada.com. And the Prime Minister said he'd like to play Jab. Well, we have Jab for him too. Yeah, we had Jab too, man. We had Jab. We have all sorts of Jab. So get your Jab package, get your Monday Night Mass package, and let's play Mass. If you've never been to Grenada for Carnival, you got to go down this year. The biggest summer festival, Grenada, Spice Mass. You got to check it out. All right? Get your packages now at mnngrenada.com. Yeah, package real sexy packages, Jen. Whoa, yo, yo. How the package sexy, so? We got the unisex t-shirt package, guys, for men and women. All right, so you get your unisex t-shirt package, or you could get your top and bottom and nice up the thing, sexy up yourself. It could be vibes. Monday Night Mass with amazing colors. Guys, if you have a business and you want to advertise on Ride Along Live, please inbox us. Let us send your business viral to the world. Because you know, as I said earlier, that we just got news today that Ride Along Live reached a 10 million plus engagement this month. I'm so happy. Make a shirt. Yes. Great. Fabulous. Amazing. Yeah. So if you want to advertise to reach our 10 million plus viewers around the world, give us a call, inbox us, let us send your business viral. All right. Thank you so much, Theo Duncan. We appreciate you. Guys, on a serious note, right? I got to say this, right? Ride Along Live is an open platform, meaning that we have an open door policy. I talk to anybody that want to talk to me, right? I would speak to anyone, and you guys know that. Me and Sobis sat in the car. We had a great conversation. Sobis wanted to talk to me. I wanted to talk to Sobis. Me and Sobis talk. So I would talk to anyone that's willing to talk to me. So I want to again appeal to members of the opposition. You have nation building ideas. You have something to speak about. Please, we have an open door policy. All right? Fun conversation. Thank you guys so much. Yes. A big up to Bashik Carnival. BashikCarnival.com. Get your pretty mask costume for Spice Mask from Bashik. BashikCarnival.com.
The NLA is giving you more chances to multiply your Playway winnings by adding Multi-X to your regular Playway bets to win up to 5 times more. Imagine winning as much as $1,200 instead of $240 with a $10 Playway bet by simply adding Multi-X. Place your Playway bets from $1 to $10 or in increments on your favorite Playway symbols or numbers. Then add the Multi-X option at the same value to win 2 times, 3 times, 5 times more, or free plays. With Multi-X, you must bet the same amount wagered on your regular Playway bets for your winnings to be multiplied. Grenadians, value your dreams and win your way as much as 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway and watch your money grow. Must be 18 years or older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
When your choice, class, and taste says luxury, visit JTS Luxury Home. With our spring into summer sale, all overstocked items must go. We stock a wide assortment of modern furniture, bedding, and home decor. The sale runs into midsummer or while stocks last. JTS Luxury Home, 467 Thomas Boylan Street, between Pitkin and East New York Avenue in Brooklyn, where opulence meets affordability.
Grenadians and friends of Grenada, the National Democratic Congress Support Group Canada cordially invites you to a gala event with the Prime Minister of Grenada, Carriacou and Piti Martinique, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Saturday, July 1st at Bellevue Manor, 8083 Jane Street in Concord, Ontario, with cocktails from 6 p.m. and dinner at 7:30, featuring live entertainment, delegation speakers, and more. Ticket donation is $250. Proceeds go to the establishment of a party resource center in Grenada. Tickets are limited. The Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Saturday, July 1st at Bellevue Manor, 8083 Jane Street in Concord. For tickets and information, please call 647-859-4142 or 647-242-9256.
The best time I have for spice mask is plain mask with amazing colors. I love amazing colors. Always spectacular. Always amazing. Always amazing.
When your choice, class, and taste says luxury, visit JTS Luxury Home. With our spring into summer sale, all overstocked items must go. We stock a wide assortment of modern furniture, bedding, and home decor. The sale runs into midsummer or while stocks last. JTS Luxury Home, 467 Thomas Boylan Street, between Pitkin and East New York Avenue in Brooklyn, where opulence meets affordability.
Again, guys, we want to big up the folks over there at the 4th annual Miss Caribbean USA Summer Body Pageant that's happening on the 25th of June at a place called JLoft, 1055 East 45th Street, Brooklyn, New York. Live performance by DeVille, Keisha Martin, and the Hitman Inspector. Can't afford to miss this one, guys. Again, it's the 4th annual Miss Caribbean Summer Body Pageant. Tickets are now $60 because you take too long. So tickets now are $60. But get it now, because you know why? There'll be more at the door. It'll be more expensive at the door. So don't waste no time. Get your ticket now. Good night, guys. On behalf of all of our production team here at Ride Along Live, we say thank you to our senior executive producer, Lois JJ. Our moderators, Kibbs, Deanne Fraser, and Gail Charles. Thank you, guys. I'll leave you with a brand new video, brand new song by Big Mitch. Just finished recording this music video. That was yesterday. So big up Big Mitch. This is his contribution for Spice Mass 2023. Good night.
US money, Caribbean money, British money, all kind of money. Great job. Great job. $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say play job, you go win the money. 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 I come up with a solution to make the people whine. I deep inside the collection to bring back the soul and style. I hear everybody saying that money run the world, so I putting up this challenge to every man, by human and girl, because it's $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say play job, you go win the money. Play job, and enjoy the fun. Man, it doesn't matter if you black or white. Once you have some money, you could enjoy yourself tonight because it's $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say play job, you go win our money. 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 $10, $20, $50, $100, $10, $20, $50, $100, $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say play job, you go win our money. 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 I come up with a solution to make the people whine. I dip inside me collection to bring back this old time style. I hear everybody saying that money run the world, so I'm putting up this challenge to every man, boy, woman and girl, because $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say $10 a tip, 20 from behind, 50 for a joke, and 100 for a wine. I say play job, you go win our money. 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 The Grenadian posse, the Trini posse, the Lucian posse, the Vinci posse, the Bajan posse, the Caribbean posse. Play job. Play job.